I've always been a procrastinator. I worry so much about doing things wrong that I put them off, and put them off until the last minute when I'll rush through things, then enjoy the high of them still turning out okay. That's always worked out for me in the past. For essays and homework, the good marks made me think this was a perfectly reasonable technique. But one thing procrastinating really doesn't work for is looking after your mental health. Going to bed angry can wreck your sleep. It must be incredibly frustrating for the people who care about me to watch me refuse to do things that I know will help me. For the last year I've been banging on about how much Pilates and running helped with my anxiety, and yet every time it comes to actually getting out of bed and doing it, I'll come up with an excuse. I tell myself I'll start next week. I talk about making my own meals and how much joy I get from baking, but week in, week out, I find myself picking up Subway or McDonald's on the way home, eating it in my room, then hating myself with an intense passion. I put off doctor's appointments, letting my medication run out and my low moods return. I still haven't sorted out my first appointment with a private therapist, despite having found multiple options weeks ago. I don't get enough sleep. I put off self-care routines for weeks on end. I watch crap TV instead of reading books that I know I'll enjoy. There's always an excuse. There's always a reason to delay it until the week after. I tell myself I'm scared to call up the receptionist at my doctor's office, that the weather's not quite right to run yet, that I'm not fit enough to join a gym, that making food in my shared kitchen is uncomfortable, that letting myself watch TV all day is taking care of myself. But really, it boils down to those lurking urges of self-destruction. There's some part of me, and I think this is the case for a lot of people with mental health issues, that feels a little bit scared of getting better. Sometimes I think that there's a small part of me that thinks I don't deserve to be happy. I don't deserve nice homemade food, or getting proper therapy, or a nice evening relaxing with a face mask. I feel like I'm awful, so I treat myself like I'm awful. That treatment makes me feel worse, which is a fun self-fulfilling cycle that's increasingly tricky to break out of. There's another part, which I've talked about before, that worries about who I'd be without my depression and anxiety. When something's been on your shoulders for over a decade, it starts to feel like part of you. Even though it's awful, you still struggle to imagine life without it. I'm working on fighting those self-destructive urges. I'm working on telling myself that I'm worthy of happiness, and not immediately reacting to feeling content by lashing out, picking holes, or pushing people away. But it's hard. It's a lot of effort. And it's not just the big things, learning to be comfortable in a happy relationship, actually trying stuff instead of letting the voice in my head tell me I'll fail, refusing to accept being treated poorly by other people. It's the little things, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, and taking time to properly relax. That's why I get more than a little bit ragey at people who slam apps and Twitter bots that remind you to do little acts of self-care. It's not that people with mental health issues don't know they need to feed themselves and sleep. It's that the depressed brain is pretty skilled at shutting out the caring voice in your head, and telling you you just don't deserve even the basics of human care. Anything that gives you a little nudge, that shouts through the fog of depression and drowns out the voice telling you you're awful, to remind you to go outside and drink water, can be a lifesaver. The same goes for setting up routines, like going to a set exercise class at the same time every week, and for friends and loved ones who step in not to take care of you, but to remind you to take care of yourself. To the outside observer, I'm a deeply lazy person surrounded by mess and old McDonald's boxes, miserable because I'm too much of a slob to get up and go to the gym. But it runs a little deeper than that. It does for nearly everyone. There are ways the world could really help us out, from GPs making sure you make an appointment before you leave the practice. Please do this, GP, I'm terrible at making phone calls, to friends setting up a weekly brunch to make sure we get out of bed every Sunday. It's those little nudges, those little reminders that disrupt the haze of depression and tell us we need to take care of ourselves and we deserve to take care of ourselves, that make all the difference. This article is part of Getting Better, a weekly series about my journey through getting help with my mental health. You can read all previous Getting Better posts here, and check back next Monday for an update on how everything's going. Chat with me on Facebook about all things mental health if you fancy, but obviously, I'm not a therapist or expert of any sort, just someone going through not so great stuff mentally. Let's get better together. Let's take a moment to appreciate the partners of people with mental health issues more, looking after our mental health on a daily basis. Why is it important, and how can we do it more? Why are so few people with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder employed? Supporting mental health must begin in the workplace.